Actually, here's a hello. Here's a quick question before we get started. What time is it where you guys are?
I think we should start now.
Okay.
Wait. Before we start, just out of curiosity, what time is it?
What time is it where you guys?
8 in the morning.
Oh, so it's 11.
Answer your question. Okay. Are you guys? Are you guys? That's all that are going to be here for this mentoring session, or are there more kids showing? Oh, I don't really know how to say.
Maybe someone will coming late, but we can start now. Only
Okay.
2 of us.
All right. Well, might as well get started.
Yeah.
Really? Okay. Never mind. So tonight's mentoring session, we're going to be talking to you guys about polite and impolite language, and that what goes along with that also language, manners, and behavior. So,
Okay.
and actually, really quickly, can you guys see all that on the board very clearly?
Yeah. Yes. We
Okay.
can see that.
Okay. Good. As long as you can see it. We'll start out. Okay. So first things first. What I mean by polite is this is like the correct thing to do or the nice thing to do. So in certain situations, there are some things you would do, some things you wouldn't do. The polite thing to do are the things you would do. And by contrast, then the impolite is then the not okay thing to do. So as an example, if you're going to meet someone for the first time, you might say hi to them and shake their hand. That is the polite thing to do. Not polite thing to do is to not look them in the eye and just completely reject their hand in gesture of shaking. So, as I mentioned, eye contact is a very important thing because looking at who you're talking to is very important. For example, Matt is holding the computer, and if I'm talking to Matt, or even if I'm talking to you guys, I want to look them or you or him in the eye, so as to show them you or him that I care about what I'm talking about. So if you kind of look, if you're looking off into the distance, or if you're not looking at, as I was just doing there, I wasn't looking at you guys. That is an example of something that would be impolite when it comes to looking at who you're talking to. Now, an instance where eye contact actually is a bad thing would be if you're not talking to somebody but you are staring at said person. Off in the distance, you're just looking at them, changing, just staring at them, basically, just looking at them, and that's all you're doing is you're just looking at them. All right. So, as I mentioned earlier, with the example of what's polite and impolite to do, here in the U.S. we call a greeting, such as like saying hi or handshake, and really a greeting is just to say hi or walking along and hi, how you doing? That's literally all it is.
This is funny.
Oh yeah, you're.
So much interference, though. Or background noise, would say.
So continuing right along, where there is or where there might be a greeting, which is you and one other person, there may then be in a group not with a group, but you're in a group of people, and you have to say an excuse me and bless you are examples of times where you might have to say, and these are phrases, words you say. And for example, you might have to say the people in order to, and this is an example of a polite thing to do. Sometimes with excuse me, you might have to say to somebody, excuse me, because you have to walk by them.
Or you farted.
Or you farted, or you passed gas, as Matt chimed in. Thank you, Matt.
I couldn't help it. It was too good not to say.
And bless you is an example of where you have to.
You sneezed.
Yeah, thank you. Where you sneezed, or not you, but somebody else sneezed, and then
Achoo, right? And
bless you. So you sneeze. So someone sneezed, and you said bless you. That is the polite thing to do. Apparently, because it is the polite thing to do. This is something I've been had a little trouble figuring out. Is why do we say
I guess
bless
something to
you?
do with like demons or something like that, or whatnot, or like you died for sex, maybe some crap like that. I don't know.
Maybe.
Oh, a handshake, firm handshake, not dead fish.
All right,
Let's show that. Let's
put that
show.
computer back in there.
Let's show them the handshake. How about that?
Okay, good idea. So we are going to show you guys an example of what a handshake is.
Okay. Okay.
So that. So when you
Okay, I get it.
Okay.
You don't want dead fish, though. You don't want dead fish. You don't want to crush someone's arm.
See how like.
Dead fish.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. That's okay. 24 hours a day. Sorry. I can't.
Really?
Yeah. Really.
Okay. So there are some examples of handshakes. That's what you do when you meet somebody for the first time. It is polite to shake their hand.
No.
This is a big one. So in many situations many of these polite, impolite situations, they will happen around a dinner table. Like, you know how, so you guys eat dinner or you eat breakfast, and you're eating, and you then have this napkin, and the napkin is like what you use to wipe your mouth, all that. There are many times a lot of these polite, impolite. Now you're distracting me. Oh, hello.
Hello. Well,
You didn't say hi. You didn't exactly say hi.
Halo Bu Citra. Hi.
So, anyway, when you're sitting around a dinner table, many of these polite, impolite behaviors or manners really do get tested. One of which, or many of which, are uses of your napkin. And when, like, for example, if you're sitting at a dinner table and you're sitting across somebody, you don't want to wipe your nose. You want to use a napkin and just kind of like that. Along with the napkin.
napkins.
Oh, you have napkins? Good. You can show them. Watch as Matt uses the napkin to wipe his mouth. Go ahead, wipe.
They should know how to wipe their mouth. Anyway, like this. Like that.
See?
Or be, what do you call this? You put your napkin in your shirt too. That's like just
My grandfather does that, but I don't. Anyway. They were laughing.
That's the whole point. That's the point.
Anyway. Continuing right along before I got distracted.
You're welcome.
Certain other things that are considered impolite at a dinner table are burping and belching. So an example, actually we're not going to show you an example of this because that is kind of rude. But usually burping or belching is a very loud sound, which is usually just from eating food or drinking a carbonated drink, you'll then just let out gas. Many times this can be on accident. Sometimes you do it on purpose.
Sometimes odorless, not usually though.
True.
That's why it's disgusting.
The times you do this on purpose are the times where it's actually rude and actually impolite. The times where it's by accident, you didn't really mean to do it, so don't give them crap for it. Okay. So,
Thank you. I'll bring the laptop.
the next. Thank you. In addition, so we've talked about dinner table stuff.
Hold the door.
Uses of napkin and burping and belching. Holding the door. This is.
Door right there.
You want to. You actually want to go into that door.
We can totally go over to the door. You want to help us? Yes. There we go. Live demonstration.
All right. We'll be showing. Okay, this is a little off course, but we will show you a demonstration.
Yes. That's how I like doing my tutoring. Yeah, so.
All right. So, I am holding the door open,
Walks through.
and the gentleman has walked through the door. Gentlemen, you may walk back. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Now, in many instances, you will be holding the door open for people, and you'll get a.
Especially for women. Guys.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yes.
why are there mostly girls here anyway?
Yeah, they're mostly girls here anyways. So in many instances, you will be holding the door open, and this is seen as the proper thing to do because, actually, yes, and which leads into the very next thing over here, holding the door open because then you'll get, well, not please, but you will get a thank you. Please is something that actually is a word that is a polite thing to do, to say many, many times throughout the day. But thank you for holding the door, as an example.
So the person that walks through the door will say thank you to the person that's holding the door.
I want to turn this screen.
Oh, no, okay.
Can I
So,
say that?
all right. So when thank you comes in, if someone's holding the door, the person who is holding the door, that's the person. So that's the person who's going to receive the thank you. So as you walk through the door, someone holds. You want to explain it? Sure. I talk really fast. Anyway.
Okay. So you hold the door open, and you then receive a thank you from someone else, from the person you held the door open for. And you then, the polite thing to then say is, "You're welcome." When it comes to holding the door and receiving a thank you, there are many times you'll be doing this, and there will be a lot of people, so you'll just hold the door open for a few moments as a whole group of people come in. And such, you're then seen as a very polite person. With please is a word. May I please have the phone? Thank you. There. That's how you would use the word please. Actually, thank you for giving me the phone.
You're welcome.
See? Okay. Here's a big one. And actually, this is something that Matt alluded to before the session got started. Is a word called punctuality. So basically, the word punctuality is just a very big, fancy way of saying being on time. So, and this actually applies to beyond us teaching you English right now. But when it comes to punctuality, this is something that is seen as a very good attribute or a very good trait. If you show up to something on time, or if you show up earlier than when you're supposed to show up, this can be seen as something as like, this is a way for someone to gauge how much, or to assess how much you care. If you show up early, if you're punctual, you will be seen as somebody who really does care about what you're doing. So this doesn't just apply to classes, like taking classes at school. This actually applies to more than that. This applies to really everything you will do in life. So if at your work, if later on in life, when you have a job, if you show up early or on time all the time, you'll then be seen as somebody at your workplace, someone who can be trusted because you're showing up early and they know you're going to be there early to then do the work that you are there to do. This way. Moving right along with punctuality, or from punctuality. From the article that I don't know if you guys did or did not read, but from the article there was some vocab that I think is worth going over. And so the first example is the term pickup. Now, for those of you who go to bars, this term definitely applies. For those of you who don't, it doesn't. However, I think it's good to know what this is, because if you are ever in a social situation, this is something that may come into play. So it's better that you know it. It's better that you know what it means. And what it means is that when you're in a bar, somebody offers to buy you a drink, and through buying that drink, they then are starting a conversation. Now, it is completely polite to buy somebody a drink. As a matter of fact, it is seen as a very, very nice thing. And the reason why this is seen as a nice thing is because in a bar, the whole idea of polite and impolite is completely different than in a normal situation, such as like in a classroom at school. In your classroom at school, you may not, what you consider to be polite or impolite may be a little different than if you're in a social situation like that of a bar, where you're there to have a drink, you're there to have a conversation which is completely relaxed. It's not about schoolwork or anything. It's like a very free-flowing conversation. Personal space. This was for me personally. This was something that was always a big topic when I was younger. Because when I was younger, personal space was something that just kind of I didn't really understand it. Because sometimes me and my friends, sometimes I would be very close to them and just be poking them, which is a very impolite thing to do. But the whole idea of personal space is there is a particular amount of space that, for example, I feel comfortable with, or I feel comfortable with people being near me. For example, here I am, and right out to about here is what I think is I'm comfortable with somebody being this far away from me. Any closer, I feel a little uncomfortable. I don't feel something doesn't feel right when someone comes that much closer to me. So this far away, I'm fine. Any closer, depending on who it is, I'm feeling a little uneasy. And personal space is something that can vary from person to person. For example, Matt might have a different idea of personal space from me, which he does. You guys might have a different idea of personal space than I do. Everyone's got their own opinion. That's all it is.
Depends on which person too, stranger or friend, right? So.
Yes, actually, thank you. It also, the whole idea of personal space also kind of changes whether you're with a stranger or with your friend. So me and Matt are friends, the whole idea of personal space is different because we're friends. We actually know each other. If me and Matt were strangers, if we had never seen each other before,
We'd be a lot farther away from each other.
we'd be a lot farther away. Right now, he's about within 3 feet of me because I know him and he knows me. If we were strangers, he'd probably be.
Oh, well.
Actually, get up and go to that. Give him a real idea of what.
All right, so.
We were strangers.
So how do you want to do this?
Well, you can hold the computer and show them.
That good?
He'd probably be that far away if we were strangers.
Yep. I'll
We
call you.
wouldn't want to be near each other. That I think was a really good example.
Yes. They're very important.
Okay. Should I talk about provocative clothing? I'm kind of. This is a troublesome topic because.
Well,
they're
I don't
all-
know much
No,
about it.
because they're all.
Well, I mean, but they need to know, right? And
Okay, you know what?
I can
Okay.
do discriminatory language if you want.
Actually, I'll have you do that whole section.
Yes.
I didn't realize how much this was, how much wind this was actually taking.
Oh, yes.
So provocative clothing. So the next part, the next thing I'm going to talk to you guys about is provocative clothing. And provocative clothing, as you can see from what I'm wearing, this is considered very unprovocative. There's nothing provocative about anything I'm wearing. When you come to the U.S., there is clothing that particularly women will wear that is very provocative, and it is
Shows the breast, shows the legs. What else?
quiet.
Fine. Okay.
It is clothing that is suggestive, and I'm not saying any of you are going to be dressing in any of this clothing, except I would rather have you know that there is this type of clothing out there than to come to the U.S. and be completely shocked by
We
it.
can do Google search.
No,
We can
no,
do a
that's
screen-
actually that's worse.
Oh, come on.
That is worse by a million miles. Anyway,
That's how I do my sessions, though. I do a ton of Google searches. Oh, they're fun.
how do I know you haven't shocked them already?
They love me.
Do they really?
They laugh at whenever I do my sessions. It's hysterical. We'll have so much fun.
They've been laughing because of me.
Oh.
So yeah, that's basically the thing about provocative clothing is some of it is suggestive, some of it is I don't know.
What do you mean by suggestive? What does that even mean? What if they don't know what that means? Do you guys know what suggestive means, though, by the way? Just out of
Actually,
curiosity.
yeah, you know what? Let's ask. Yeah, do you guys know what? Turn the computer to you so you can ask that.
So, do you guys know what suggestive means? By the way.
As a matter of fact, you can even ask it a different way, like by suggestive. They probably only understand what suggestive is in their.
All right. So in the U.S.,
they probably have no idea what it means to us.
So in the U.S., we have a tendency to over-sexualize things. So when we say suggestive, does it mean basically saying is, can I curse? I don't.
You know what? You wanted to go right into.
We can go right into the curse words. So this is the fun part. Yo, all right. I've waited all day for this one. Where's the blue marker? Holy crap! Ah, yes, yes. So, no, do you want to go into the whole urban dictionary thing?
Only if you want to. I'm not doing it.
All right. So when I say suggestive, all right. So here in the US, we have a tendency to over-sexualize things. So basically, it's so very provocative clothing. We're saying they're suggestive because basically saying that it's kind of like saying like on a big outright that it's like I'm looking for a partner to have sex with, essentially. Okay. That's about as PG as I can make without going into the curse words. Okay, so that's basically what I mean by suggestive. Because all right, curse words. I'll give you guys 2 curse words today. How about that? I promise to behave. Okay.
Can we make sure that this doesn't come back on us and Professor Anwar is not aware that we did this?
But it's on the board. What? Did you not know? Or
I have the culture of swearing on there, but yes, we're to talk about curse words and swears.
I'd rather not tell them. Okay. So
Hey, if you want to tell, you know what? Go ahead. Tell them. Tell them 2 words, but keep it to 2.
keep it at 2. All right. So the 2 most common. Ah, yes.
You know what? You might as well just thank George Carlin for what he did to my brain.
Okay, so. All right, so 2 curse words. Basically, the most common ones you basically are going to find here. I might actually get yelled at about this, but you know what? We're going to do this anyway. It's for you guys. So, first word.
Come on.
All right, fine. So,
Yep. Thank you very much. I was afraid that was going to be the first one.
one of the most common ones you can hear is fuck. All right. So,
Don't go at length. Just explain.
all right. So basically, it's like the most simplest way I could say is like another way of saying like if someone's gonna shout the word fuck, basically they'll be like, oh my god, or something like that, or oh my gosh, or like it's like they're shocked.
Actually, you can tell them the alternatives to the curse words or the
Or the actual meaning of the word?
The nicknames. Like, what's a nickname for that word?
F-bomb.
Thank you.
All right, so another one, yeah, F-bomb, and then like the other most common one you're probably gonna hear is shit. Okay.
That's mild.
Well, want me to go into other ones?
No.
I can go much deeper. This is about as I can get. Okay.
Just
so
understand that Professor Anwar is listening to us.
that's fine.
Putri, this is only for knowing, not
Yes,
for
no.
practicing.
Yeah. Now.
Okay.
Thank you, Professor Kafrawi.
All right. So you
My
see.
point.
No. So in this case, basically, we see the word shit. Basically, it's like it also means like taking a poop. So basically, it's kind of like saying it's if you say to someone, you hear someone say like that's like you're a little shit. Basically, all it means is basically saying that like it's like you're an awful person. That's all it's basically saying in the most mildest term. Okay. So those are curse words. That's as far as we can go into. This is gonna get a lot worse.
I should hope you know what to do and not to do.
Well, I think I want to. I'm not supposed to. I can
Remember, it's only for them to know.
It's only for them to know. So I should go to racial slurs. Should I go to sexual orientation slurs, or
You can talk. I would rather talk. I would rather you talk about.
don't tell them? Okay, fine.
Yeah, don't. Yeah.
All right.
Do you really want them to know words that people name, that words that you probably find offensive? Particularly racial slurs or toward black people. I'd rather them to know that these are out there than to actually know them.
Okay. So there's discriminatory language. Basically, all it is like how would you describe it though? You wanna go? You got this one?
So, discriminatory language. These are words that have been used throughout history to demean, belittle, or
Show a hierarchy, right?
actually, that's exactly one reason why these words have been used, to show hierarchy. So so there are words that I can't say to him because they would be discriminatory, and there are words he can't say to me because they would be discriminatory.
What can I say to you?
Okay. There's a few I can think of, but we're not going to get into that. Now, there are also words that the older gentleman you saw earlier, there are words I can't say to him because they're discriminatory toward him. And at the same time, there are words he can't say to me because they're discriminatory toward me. That's true. So that is kind of what discriminatory is. These are that's what they are. They're not, as opposed to curses and swears. Curses and swears are just words that are bad in general. So the 2 words Matt showed you, for example.
Don't repeat those.
Never. Yeah, don't repeat them. But those are words that they're seen as dirty in general, dirty in general. But they really they don't have a meaning per se. Discriminatory language actually has a meaning because they actually are used in a derogatory or they're used in a poor way. The curse words Matt showed you, however, sometimes are used
during excitement. It's like during excitement, you be excited and start cursing or something like that. It doesn't have to be to belittle something. It also
you mean like
curse
the F word and
yeah.
yeah. Sometimes curse words while they are dirty in general, while they're dirty or they're seen as dirty, sometimes they can be used to excite.
Well, I guess it's more of like it's like something that's like really passionate rant or something like that. You know what I mean?
Okay. So sometimes, as Matt just mentioned, sometimes if you're going on a really passionate rant or you're really feeling it, sometimes you'll just let out some of these curse words, which they do let out. They're I don't want to say they're a good way of relieving stress, but they can do that. Okay.
Impact and anger too.
Okay. Do you want to explain this, or do you want me?
What's one cultural swearing? Well, we can both explain, but it's not. But like,
Here, I'll let you start.
so like as we said before about curse words and swear words, there's a culture of swearing, and they can't even see that, can they? No, they can't. Well, anyway, so essentially, people will curse either for like one or two reasons because they want to make an impact, because they want to kind of get your attention in a way. So because
Actually, I might have a really good way of a good analogy of explaining this. All right. Okay. To explain culture, to explain an idea of culture of swearing. So as Matt was explaining, yes, one way is for impact. Another way I like to think of this is shock value. Yes, that's cursing for shock value. No, not but so another way of explaining impact is for shock value. If you ever come to excuse me, when you are here in the U.S., some people like to do is go see comedy or stand-up comedy, which is basically just people trying to make you laugh. If what separates good comedians, good comics from bad ones is this whole idea of swearing is swearing for impact or swearing for shock value. You do not swear for shock value because saying a sentence where almost every word is made up of those two words that Matt showed you, plus several others, that is not funny.
No.
Inserting curses for not impact, inserting curses at certain times can make the difference in terms of when people are going to laugh. To continue on, there is also anger. So, actually, there have been times. Don't lose computer. There have been times that the older gentleman you saw earlier. There have been times I've been sitting on my couch and out of anger because he hurt himself, he probably yelled out, "Shit!" in anger. Okay, he yelled that out in anger. That is a time where it's kind of okay because when you're angry, it's really easy to just let these words fly.
it helps,
But
reduce some of the pain as well.
yeah, yes. Sometimes cursing actually relieves the pain because really all you have to do is just start letting your emotion go, and the curses start flying, and the stress just gets relieved, and the pain. It's almost as if the pain then becomes secondary. It's not exactly a good thing to do, and usually when it happens, your parent, whoever your parent is, tells you not to do it. That's okay. They did it out of anger. It's completely fine.
We should probably say that sometimes personalities of people, because some people, because like that's just how they are. They just kind of curse in almost every sentence.
Okay.
So
So I guess another way to further explain this, with the culture of swearing, some people just everyone has different personalities. Everyone acts differently. Some people just curse in general, I guess is the best way of explaining it. Some people just happen to do it. Other people know when it is okay to use a curse word or a swear and know when to use it and when not to use it. So that's basically, and so that's a basic idea of what the culture of swearing is, which it's kind of sad that we're explaining this to you, like the whole idea of culture of swearing to you, because in a really good scenario, I'd rather not have to explain all this to you. Matt, I feel like is different. But that's just me. So
thesaurus.
I actually think it might be a good idea if me and Matt asked you guys a couple of questions that pertain to what we've talked about, which is there anything that is polite or impolite? Like, what is considered polite or impolite in Indonesia? Because we've spent the better part of 45 minutes explaining to you what is polite, impolite here in the U.S., but what exactly is polite or impolite in Indonesia, for example? Anything? No? Do you guys have any questions for us, for me and Matt?
Okay. Actually, like polite things in Indonesia, we usually, like when we wanna come to another door, like another room, to visit our colleague, we are going to say Assalamualaikum, something like that. Like knock the door and then say something like Assalamualaikum.
So you
Like salam apa ya? Greetings, like greetings.
knock on the door and then you say like I'm coming in, or
Yeah, yeah, something like that. Like knock the door and then say it, salam or greetings. In this one.
Okay.
Yeah.
You guys actually brought up that brings up another point. That's also something that here in the U.S. is kind of something that is polite. It is polite to knock on the door,
Especially if it's closed.
especially if it's closed.
Yeah.
Whereas it would be impolite. And
Just
you
to
know what?
walk
Let's
in.
do here.
I think that one's locked too. You can try it. See? But that one, hold up. This one over here. Usually lock that door. So, this one.
So,
Can you get back in? Or you locked it? Okay.
like to your guys' point, another example, like what's closed, and I just walk right in without knocking on the door. Whereas if I
Yeah.
knocked on the door, it would be better.
Yeah.
Okay, since we asked you guys that question,
Yeah.
are there any questions you guys have for me or Matt regarding anything we've spoken about?
Sword. The sword.
Oh,
They want to.
yang mana tadi? Oh yeah, Putri said to me that she wanna ask for provocative clothing. What about format?
Format.
Yeah,
Format.
clothing format.
For polite and impolite?
Yeah, provocative clothing. Yeah, something like impolite things. Clothing. You said like almost all of them are women.
I'm thinking
Yeah.
polite and impolite. Is that what you guys talk about polite and impolite?
Provocative clothing.
Are you talking about like polite and impolite? Let me get rid of this blue light filter here. This is ridiculous.
Wow, that is amazing.
Right? Okay.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Can you guys repeat the question?
I want to ask you about what's provocative clothing for men. For men, provocative clothing. In your board, you can say, can the camera show us the board?
The board. Show.
Board, yes. All right. In vocab article, can you show us?
Oh.
All right. Yes. Provocative clothing.
Oh.
Yes, that's right.
Provocative
Yes.
clothing.
What's provocative clothing for men?
Okay.
Tight
Yeah.
shirts, tight jeans.
You get it?
Yeah. Provocative clothing for like me and Matt. Like what would be provocative?
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry that it took me so long to understand what you were
It's
trying to
okay.
do. The audio is not great.
Tight shirt, ripped jeans, or like Speedos. What?
Speedos on the page. That's a little bit.
No.
Okay, so something that'd be provocative is if you had like so here in the U.S. we have a shirt that.
Yes.
I was just kidding.
Yes.
We have a shirt that we call a V-neck because here is literally in the shape of a V. And sometimes what would be considered provocative is depending how far down the V is because it shows like the that would be one idea of provocative. Another idea of provocative is really, really tight pants. Like if your pants are really, really tight on you, provocative.
Biceps. No.
Actually, yeah, maybe. And then like sometimes shirts will show the same thing. Shirts will like be tight to show the definition of a guy's arm, his bicep. Like, might be an idea of provocative clothing for men.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay.
Any other questions?
What about bullying?
Hmm?
What about bullying? Bullying.
Work.
But no, bullying.
Oh, bullying.
Yeah.
Bullying, yes.
Yeah.
You bring up a very
Bullying.
good- Thank you.
First play a big role.
I can't believe we actually didn't think of this.
What's the? Okay, keep going. I promise. I'm behaving.
I know you are. So bullying. This is where a very fine line gets drawn. So this is where a very fine line is drawn, because bullying is one of those things that is very much impolite. It's very much impolite to do, and people do this all the time. And that's part of it, but that's not all of it. But there is a very big reason why this happens. And Matt actually just said it. One reason is jealousy. Someone might be jealous of someone else, so they bully them to make that other person feel bad. That is actually where the other biggest reason actually as to what bullying happens. Oftentimes, people who are bullies actually got bullied themselves. This is something that's a little strange to think about, but at the same time, it really isn't, because bullies are those who have already gotten bullied very often. And I mean, I'm sure myself and Matt, we ourselves have probably at times been bullied. Other people probably, and very regrettably, we might have done some. We want them to come here. We don't want them to be scared away.
Well, they need to know the reality. Okay, fine. I'll be
Regrettably, me and Matt may have done something that was bullying. We'll just call it bullying. I can't say bullying like. It was bullying that we might have done at one time. I'm sure that me and Matt both know right from wrong and understand that certain things are just not to be done. Bullying is one of those things. So actually, thank you, Prutri, for bringing that up, because this is an activity that is very much it's very much connected to polite and impolite behavior. What was it you just said?
Lines you don't cross.
Ah, okay. Do you guys?
Yeah, we
Oh, so let's see if they have. Do you guys have any other questions?
Is there any limit for making a joke with the friends? Any limits for making?
So making a joke with friends.
that goes on cross as well.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna quickly talk about something that I'm gonna call. To your question about jokes you make with friends, there are lines you do not cross, which is the section of the board. There are lines you do not cross, and when it comes to jokes with your friends, this can be a little tricky because you and your friends, you know each other.
Yeah.
You're comfortable with each other. You will say things that your friend will find funny. Your friend will say things that you find funny. But there are times where you'll say things and you don't know how your friend's going to react. Like, I might say something that I don't know how Matt's going to react to it. Matt might say something, he doesn't know how I'm going to react to it. So there are times where there are lines you don't cross. As an example, not to be repeated, is there are certain jokes. So if you have a friend who happens to be obese or fat, and you make certain jokes about their weight, or you make jokes about the food they eat, that is an example of a line not cross.
It gets personal.
Only because it gets personal, and because you know that person. If it's a stranger, it is completely different. You just don't do it. And then there are times where people will make a joke about an obese or a fat person, and it might be funny, but it might only be funny if there are no fat people in the area, in the immediate area. So that's an example of a line you do not cross. Another example would be actually, you know what? I'm just going to put this out there. The older gentleman you saw earlier, he happened to be my dad. If I said, not that I'm saying something about him, but if someone said something about my dad,
Like me, if I said.
so for example, if Matt said something about my dad that I didn't really like, I would find it offensive. But to go a little further, if someone else who I didn't really know very well said something else about my dad that I then didn't like, I really would be like, hey, watch what you're saying. Don't say it again. So that's another example of lines you don't cross. There are certain things you...
That's how you make enemies. You don't want to make
It's a quick way.
Yeah.
You don't say... There are certain things you don't say about another person's family member, particularly someone's grandparent, who is a very... And grandparents tend to be very old, much older, so there are certain things you really avoid. But the same applies to a parent, a sibling, so me and my sister, there are things I don't say to her, there are things she doesn't say to me, and the same would apply. Like, there are certain things my friends I would not like for them to say about my sister, and there are things I'm sure my sister wouldn't want her friends to say about me. So, those are some examples of lines you don't cross. Any other questions, comments, or concerns? That it? Or do you guys have
I
something
got
else?
it.
Nope. That's it?
Yeah, that's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, thank you guys for showing up. I really hope everything we've spoken about here has been helpful.
Yes.
Okay, that's it. That's all we got.
Yeah,
Okay, thank you very much.
Here you go.
Thank you very much.
Okay. You can.
Bye, guys.
Bye. Thank you, Jacob. Soalnya juga close juga. Kok aku panik banget sih mau nanya yang tadi?